The question was, how does the mass affect the length? Do you guys realize we just generated a ton of answers? So what were the different ways in which we produced an answer? The very first one, what did we say? But I think even before that, we said if one goes up, the other, right? Like this was so long ago, we forgot because it was so easy. See how easy it was, the first one? Right? The very, very first one was just, we wrote a verbal description. Do you guys remember that? So we had a verbal way to answer the question. This is the answer to the question. If one goes up, the other goes up. If I make one bigger, the other one gets bigger. How else did we answer this question? We created a graph. Is that graph? Yeah, that's graph. And we said, oh, by the way, if you're interested, here's a graph that's going to give you this relationship. And what else did we just do? We just wrote an equation. So you have a whole lot of different ways of answering the same question, and each answer has its own benefit. If I'm looking for prediction, if I'm looking for if there's a 350 grams at the end of it, which of these is a good way to go? Right, the equation is the fastest of the set. If I am trying to explain to somebody the general trends, what's a good way to go? Graph's still a really good story. If I'm talking to a 5-year-old, what's a good way to go? Right? So each one has a power. They're not always the same, and they're not always used the same way. But it's kind of neat. You've managed to answer this question 3 different ways.
And on the board, you have like a picture of this thing. I guess you could even.
And that's another one, right? So that would be pictorial. Good thinking. If I could find my blue marker again. Right? Because I could do the sequence of pictures. We didn't do it, but we could have. Right? Especially if I'm talking to a 5-year-old, here's a spring without it. Here's a spring with one mass in it. Here's a spring with a bigger mass in it, and do a sequence of pictures. So there's also pictorial. And again, each one of them has its own power. Let's get through the rest of the whiteboards. It should go a little faster, because this was kind of painful. And then I'll tell you how we're going to write out this lab as a final lab.